Finally, we understand most of these words. At last. Okay, I gotta crack my neck. I hope it's not too loud. Nothing happened. Fuck or not. Damn it, you missed the beginning. Anyways. So, there are two types of existentialists. There are the atheistic and the Christian. Seems like a narrow view, but whatever. It is subjective. Okay, anyways. Or what did he say exactly? I would say instead of Christian, I would say there are atheistic and religious existentialists. I don't feel the need to, like, narrow it down to certain religions. But also, that might be ignorant of me. Like, it might be offensive to some people to impose a philosophy distinction on their religion, so I'm not going to touch that. Whatever. There are two kinds of people in the world, though. But what they both have in common is simply their belief that existence precedes essence. Or, if you prefer, that subjectivity must be our point of departure. What exactly do we mean by that? If we consider a manufactured object, such as a book or a paper knife, we note that this object was produced by a craftsman who drew his inspiration from a concept. He referred to both the concept of what a paper knife is and to a known production technique that is part of that concept and is, by and large, a formula. This is actually a metal nail file, but a paper knife, I believe, is like a letter opener. But I'll also take a nail file. Take the nail file, for instance. It is produced by a craftsman who drew his inspiration from a concept. He referred both to the concept of what a paper knife is and to a known production technique that is a part of that concept and is, by and large, a formula. The paper knife is thus both an object produced in a certain way and one that, on the other hand, serves a definite purpose. We cannot suppose that a man would produce a paper knife without knowing what purpose it would serve. Let us say, therefore, that the essence of the paper knife, that is the sum of formulae and properties that enable it to be produced and defined, the essence of it precedes its existence. Thus, the presence of a paper knife or a book before my eyes is predetermined. Sorry, it is determined. Previously. Oh, I almost blew a snot rocket. Thus, the presence before my eyes of that paper knife or book is determined. Here, then, we are viewing the world from a technical standpoint, whereby we could say production precedes existence, Guys, it's a paper knife, not a poop knife. God damn it. But you could... Me replacing paper knife with poop knife throughout the whole essay. He referred to both the concept of what a poop knife is and to a known production technique that is a part of that concept and is by and large a formula. The poop knife is thus both an object produced in a certain way and one that, on the other hand, serves a definite purpose. We cannot suppose that a man would produce a poop knife without knowing what purpose it would serve. Fuck, that's good. Okay, thus the presence before my eyes of that poop knife or book is determined. I'll stop that bit now. Here we are viewing the world from a technical standpoint, whereby we could say production precedes existence. When we think of God the Creator, when we think of God the Creator, we usually think of him as a superlative artisan. Whatever doctrine we may be considering, say Descartes or Leibniz's, we always agree that the will more or less follows understanding, or at the very least accompanies it, so that when God creates, he knows exactly what he is creating. Like, I'm not gonna say it. Thus, the concept of man in the mind of God is comparable to the concept of the poop knife in the mind of the manufacturer. No, we're getting this all wrong. No, that's actually such a great way to connect it to things we all know. I don't even know what a paper knife is, but I do know what a poop knife is. So we could say that in the mind of God, man, as he is created by the superlative artisan of God, we are like a poop knife in the mind of God. It does sound more French this way. It's comparable to the concept of the paper knife in the mind of the manufacturer. God produces man following certain techniques and a conception, just as the craftsman, following a definition and a technique, produces a paper knife. Thus, each individual man, women included. See, I do miss reading Peter Kropotkin. Do you guys know how hard it was to be a 14-year-old girl reading philosophy? And they're like, man, let the mind of man, oh, man. Do you know how hard that... Ow, I just hit my ankle with a book. It's gonna leave a mark. Do you guys know how hard that was on me? Alright, I was like, yes, I'm inferior. I'm basically a dog riding a unicycle. Cool. Fuck you. At least Peter Kropotkin was like, he'd like write a whole fucking diatribe about like, and mankind needs this. And then like at the end he'd be like, oh, and also women who are important sometimes. Also. I miss that. Anyways. Thus the concept of man in the mind of... Oh, sorry. Wrong line. Thus, each individual man is the realization of a certain concept within the divine intelligence. This is where we are right now Do you guys realize this? This is what most people think. This is what most people think is true. They're like, yep, I'm a poop knife in the mind of God, but only if you're a man, and also everyone else is just an animal. And also animals are machines. It makes a lot of sense when you really understand what I'm saying right now. Starts crying. Okay, anyways. Thus, each individual man is the realization of a certain concept within the divine intelligence. 18th century atheistic philosophers suppressed the idea of God. But not for all that. The idea that essence precedes existence. They suppressed God, but they still believe that essence precedes existence. What's the point of getting rid of God if you're not going to get rid of the concept of essence precedes existence, and you're the animal. Okay, anyways. And also, I believe animals are humans. 'Cause I'm a woman. Anyways, I think this might actually make me have a fucking mental breakdown. Anyways, I'll keep reading though. We're on page 21. How many pages have I read? We started on 17. 4? Is that 4? The plus 4? 5, 6. It's 6? Who cares? Numbers aren't real. People are. '18th century atheistic philosophers suppressed the idea of God. But not, for all that, the idea that essence precedes existence. We encounter this idea nearly everywhere. In the works of Diderot, Voltaire, and even Kant. Man possesses a human nature. This human nature, which is the concept of that which is human, is found in all men, which means that each man is a particular example of a universal concept, man. All of you represent a universal concept. Man. In Kant's works, this universality extends so far as to encompass forest dwellers. This universality extends so far as to encompass forest dwellers, man in a state of nature, and the bourgeois, meaning that they all possess the same basic qualities. Here again, the essence of man precedes his historically primitive existence in nature. Sorry, I had to burp. Oh, sorry, that was that? Okay. Never mind, ignore that. Cut that out in post, please. The stuttering. Here again, the essence of man precedes his historically primitive existence in nature. Atheistic existentialism, which I represent, is more consistent. Thank you. I literally, sometimes I get confused by what I'm reading, because I've been confused by things that I read, but then I'll question it. But if I had only just read one line further, it would have answered my question. Okay. Atheistic existentialism, which I represent, is more consistent. It states that if God does not exist, or, wait, what? Oh. It states that if God does not exist, a being whose existence comes before its essence, a being who exists I skipped a line. This is like, I'm fucking it up so monumentally, but also that's like kind of existential of me, am I right? Oh my god, kill me. Atheistic existentialism, which I represent, is more consistent. It states that if God does not exist, there is at least one being in whom existence precedes essence. A being whose existence comes before its essence. A being who exists before he can be defined by any concept of it. Who? Like Dora the Explorer. That being is man. Or, as Heidegger put it, the human reality. I thought it was Forsen. What the fuck, man? This is going a lot better than the first time I read this. There is at least one being in whom, if God does not exist, then there is at least one other being whose existence comes before its essence. That being is man. Or, as Heidegger put it, the human reality. What do we mean here by existence precedes essence? We mean that man first exists. He spawns in the world. Sorry, like when you just spawn in a video game, never mind, that's, alright, we're getting way distracted. What if life was a simulation? Fuck. I'm so joking right now, by the way. I'm trying to make it more, like, relatable to concepts that we all think about, you know? Anyways, man first exists. He materializes in the world. Encounters himself. Usually through, like, a mirror or a reflection. Or through the face of your parents. And the eyes of other humans. And then eventually the eyes of animals. Anyways, like I said, this is gonna make me have a mental breakdown. God damn it. How long is this? Can I read it all in one day? No. No, I can't. I cannot. It is... Oh, 70... I already knew that. It's 72... But it's from page 17 to page 72. I'm even more sure with every step. I wish I could just download this into your guys' consciousness. What do we mean here by existence? Upload, sorry. What do we mean by existence precedes essence? We mean that man first exists. He materializes in the world, encounters himself, and only afterwards defines himself. If man, as existentialists conceive of him, cannot be defined, it is because, to begin with, he is nothing. He will not be anything until later. And then he will be what he makes of himself. Thus, there is no human nature, because there is no God to conceive of it. Man is not only what he conceives himself to be, but that which he wills himself to be. And since he conceives of himself only after, I love that we're talking about conceiving, because it's Labor Day. Anyways, man is not only that which he conceives himself to be, but that which he wills himself to be. And since he conceives of himself only after he exists, just as he wills himself to be after being thrown into existence, man is nothing other than what he makes of himself. This is the first principle of existentialism. It is also what is referred to as subjectivity, the very word used as a criticism against us. But what do we mean by that, if not that man has more dignity than a stone or a table? What we mean to say is that man first that was even better. Wasn't this written like while Nazis were in power? This speech was given like in 1945. That was like the explosion of existentialism, right? I don't even know what you're referring to by typing 1945, but I think you're actually more correct. It was to correct common misconceptions about his thought that Sartre accepted an invitation to speak on October 29th, 1945. No, shut up, I'm right. And I actually already knew that, but I forgot. At the Club Maintenanat in Paris. The unstated objective of his lecture, Existentialism is a Humanism, was to expound his philosophy as a form of existentialism, a term much bandied about in the press at the time. He asserted that existentialism was essentially a doctrine for philosophers, but ironically, he was about to make it accessible to a general audience. But also existentialism was really important in the 1940s, especially because Nazi Germany was a thing, and the Holocaust, you motherfuckers. The Holocaust happened, and that's when we truly realized that God was dead, and oh my God, we need to figure out what the fuck we're doing, because even if God is real, he's not helping us. Anyways. Existentialism. I feel God in this Chili's right now. I don't even care what you believe in. You better listen to me. What do we mean by that, if not that man has more dignity than a stone or a table? Or a poop knife? What we mean to say is that man first exists. That is, that man primarily exists. That man is, before all else, something that projects itself into a future. And is conscious of doing so. Man is indeed a project that has a subjective existence, much unlike that of a patch of moss or a spreading fungus or a cauliflower. Much unlike that, prior to that projection of self, nothing exists. Not even divine intelligence. Listen, there's religious existentialists as well. They're just less consistent than the atheists, logically. Anyways, prior to that projection of self, nothing exists. Not even in divine intelligence. And man shall attain existence only when he is what he projects himself to be, not what he would like to be. What we usually understand by will is a conscious decision that most of us take after we have made ourselves what we are. I may want to join a political party, write a book, or get married. But all of that is only a manifestation of an earlier and more spontaneous choice than what is known as will. If, however, existence truly does precede your essence, man is responsible for what he is. Thus, the first effect of existentialism, lysergic acid diethylamine, I don't know. I'm kidding. Thus, the first effect of existentialism is to make every man conscious of what he is, and to make him solely responsible for his own existence. And when we say that man is responsible for himself, we do not mean that he is responsible only for his own individuality, but that he is responsible for all men. I don't know, this seems kind of sexist, like against men. I feel like this is misandrist. I think men should be given cookies and gold star stickers and told that they're God's favorite. Never mind, I'm sorry. Anyways, I feel like if you say men too much, like a bunch of men start like screaming at you. I had to like make a joke about it. They're like, stop reading this! Smells like accountability. I'm sorry. Women do it too. See, the fun thing to me is that man just means human. And I consider all of us a part of mankind. You're welcome. English is, most languages are pretty sexist. But, that's the fun. That's the binary of the party, right? Where was I? Will, subjectivism. And when we say that man is responsible for himself, I would love to read a language free of that shit. Sounds cool. Like, I mostly know gendered, but Like, mankind. Ugh. Only the British could come up with that. And when we say that man is responsible for himself, we do not mean that he is responsible only for his own individuality, but that he is responsible for all men. The word subjectivism has two possible interpretations, and our opponents play with both of them at our expense. Subjectivism means, on the one hand, the freedom of the individual subject to choose what he will be, and on the other, man's inability to transcend his human subjectivity. But the fundamental meaning of existentialism resides in the latter. The fundamental meaning is not the freedom of the individual subject to choose what he will be. It is in your inability to transcend that subjectivity. We are trapped in this, you guys. We are trapped in our own humanity. Anyways, the fundamental meaning of existentialism resides in the latter. Wait, does that mean... Yeah, okay. When we say that man chooses himself, not only do we mean that each of us must choose ourselves, but that in choosing himself, he is choosing for all men. In fact, in creating the man that each of us wills ourselves to be, there is not a single one of our actions that does not at the same time create an image of man as we think he ought to be. Choosing to be this or that is to affirm at the same time the value of what we choose. Because we can never choose evil. We always choose the good. And nothing can be good for any of us unless it is good for all. If, moreover, existence precedes essence, and we will to exist at the same time as we fashion our image, that image is valid for all and for our whole era. Our responsibility is thus far greater than we would have supposed, because it concerns all of mankind. If I am a worker and I choose to join a Christian trade, if I am a worker and I choose to join a Christian trade union rather than become a communist, and if by that membership I choose to signify that resignation is, after all, the most suitable solution for man, and that the kingdom of man is not on this earth, I am not committing myself alone. I am choosing to be resigned on behalf of all. Consequently, my actions commit all of mankind. Or, to use a more personal example, if I decide to marry and have children, granted, such a marriage proceeds solely from my own circumstances, passions, or my desire, I am nonetheless committing myself, not only myself, but all of humanity, to the practice of monogamy. I am therefore responsible for myself and for everyone else. And I am fashioning a certain image of man as I choose him to be. In choosing myself, I choose man. And I think that is where I will stop today, because I do think that's a great spot to pick up next week. Even though I really want to keep reading, I feel like I'm on a roll. But I think that's it. I gotta go pee again. I'm gonna go think silently on the toilet, on the porcelain throne where all great thinkers reside. Thank you. Thank you all for listening. My greatest reading of existentialism is a humanism yet. And don't forget that never mind. Anyways, I hope you feel the crushing weight of responsibility now. And you choose yourself, and I choose myself, and you choose yourself, and I choose myself, and it only gets better, so please tune in next week as well.